Verse 28. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyakta nidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. Nagesh, read.
Arjuna, before birth, beings are not manifest to our human senses. No death.
On death.
On death, they return to the unmanifest again. They are manifest only in the interim between birth and death. What occasion then for lamentation?
Very important verse, okay? Bhagwan is saying that before you were born, you were not manifest, means you could not be seen. You existed, but you were not visible. You were not manifest. And after death, again, you will go to that same state where you will not be manifest. You will not be seen. You will not be perceived. You will exist, but you will not be seen. And during that time of birth and death, that means during our lifetime, is the only time when you become visible. If that is so, what is there to cry about? What is there to feel sad? Bharat, Arjun, the last word in the first line, Bharat. He's addressing Arjun, Bharat, because he is the descendant of the Bharat dynasty. Bhutani, all created beings, avyaktadini, first word, are unmanifest before birth. Avyakt means not manifest. So Arjun, all creative beings are unmanifest, unseen, invisible, unperceivable before they are born. He doesn't say they did not exist before they are born. He just says you cannot see them before they are born. Then Madhyani, in the middle, they are Vyakta, manifest. Then Nidhani, on death, Eva, indeed. Again, Avyakta, unmanifest.
Eva is
Indeed. So before you were born, you were not visible, not manifest. In the middle, you became manifest. After you died, again you became unmanifest. Tatra, therefore, ka paridevana, why should you grieve? Be happy, yeah. Don't be so happy that you don't do any purusharth. So in verse 20, if you'll see, just go back a little bit, verse 20, Bhagwan Krishna explains to Arjun why he should not grieve for the soul. Why should not grieve for the soul? Not born, nor is it going to die. Therefore, you don't need to grieve for the soul. In verse 27, what does he say? You should not grieve. Why? Because you're not the body. Death is only, body is going to die. Death is certain for those who are born. And rebirth is certain for all the bodies that are going to be dead. So, for the body you should not grieve. For the soul you should not grieve. 20 is for soul, 27 is for body. In this verse, he is addressing both. You should not grieve for soul also. You should not grieve for body also. in Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad tells Yudhishthir, and everybody seems to be telling Yudhishthir only all these things. He says, whether you consider the personality to be an eternal soul, whether you consider yourself to be a soul, Atma, or a temporary body, means whatever you want to think, or even if you accept it as a mixture of soul and body, suppose even that. So either you have material Charvak, or you believe in Vedant, or you believe in something mixture, little Charvak and little Vedant. Anyway, you should not lament. In any of these two cases or three cases, you should not lament. The cause for lamentation is only attachment that arises out of illusion. It is only attachment which is making you feel sad, which is giving you sorrow. You are not actually crying for body, you are not actually crying for Atma, you are only crying because you are in asakti, in attachment. So why do we say that this body, what is this body made up of? Okay, when we say we are not this body, so there are 3 layers to each of us. Okay, 3 layers, or we can say we call them 3 sheaths, or we call them 3 koshas. Koshas are 5, but we are talking about 3. First is the gross body. Gross body is also called sthul sharir. What is this gross body made up of? Panchabhut. 5 elements. What are they? Space, air, fire, water, earth. Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi. Then there is one more layer. That is not enough. So how do I distinguish between this table and me? So we also have one subtle body, Sukshma Sharir. Sukshma Sharir is what makes this body function. And it is made up of 19 elements. Who remembers? Tattva Bodh? 5 indriyas, correct. 5 gyan indriyas, 5 sense, 5 karma indriya.
Mind,
Then
intellect,
mind, intellect,
memory,
chit, ahankar. Then
we are done.
and 5 pranas. 5 organs of perception, what we call sense organs. They are not the organ, it's not this eye which you see, but it's the faculty of sight. It's not this ear that you see, it's the faculty of hearing. It's not the tongue, it's the faculty of tasting. It's not the skin, it's the faculty of feeling. Like that. So like that 5 gyan indriyas, then 5 karma indriyas, 5 organs of action. What are they? The ability to hold, the ability to walk, then the ability to speak, the ability of reproduction, and the ability of excretion. 5 karma indriyas. Then 5 pranas. What are the 5 pranas? Prana,
Apana,
apana, vyana, udanaya, samana. They are all the different systems in your body which make it function. Breathing, digestion, respiration, circulation, upward movement, downward movement, all those things. And then your man, your buddhi, your chitta and ahankar. These all make up your sukshma sharir. subtle body. It is what makes you function. Without this, this cannot function. It's dead. Then there's one more sheath, one more layer, one more aspect of yourself, which is called causal body or Karan Sharir. It is the cause of your birth. It is because of the causal body that you take birth again. And what is that made up of? Your karmas, your vasanas, and all the sanskars, all the impressions of every lifetime that you have lived, starting from when you were a donkey and monkey. Every single vasana, every single karma, every single sanskar is imprinted on that, because of which you need to keep taking birth, specifically for the vasanas which have remained unfulfilled. You take a birth again to fulfill them. And these three sharirs, they are not separate sharirs. They are just layers, and they are continuously interacting with each other. They are continuously influencing each other. The subtle body is definitely influencing your gross body. Yes or no?
Yes.
Your thought is definitely interfering with your heartbeat. It's definitely influencing your speech. Yeah. Now at the time of death, what happens? The soul discards only the physical body, only the gross body. It only discards the sthul sharir. And it departs along with the subtle body and the causal body. It takes along the sukshma sharir and the karan sharir. And then depending on your karmas and whatever, at some stage you get another gross body according to your vasanas, according to your karmas, according to your sanskars, and you get birth into a suitable mother's womb. Okay? When a realized person dies, when someone who has realized Aham Brahmasmi, they discard all three bodies. They discard gross body, they discard subtle body, and they discard causal body.
The soul that we speak of is the Jivatma.
The conditioned Atma is called Jivatma. So, if you are not yet enlightened, you have left your gross body behind. Your subtle body is all your thoughts, your causal body is all your desires. So, you are living in an unmanifest condition along with your thoughts, along with your desires, along with your vasanas, along with your sanskars, in one realm which is called astral world. Loka, in one of the lokas. I'll not go into the details of that. So, the death which you have from this world, we call it physical death. So, physical death is an exit from material world, and you are born in astral world. At some stage, you are going to be reborn, so that will be astral death taking you to physical world. So that's a cycle. Physical death, astral birth. Astral death, physical birth. Like this, we go
In astral
on.
plane also you have Sukh and Dukkha.
Huh?
Astral world also you have Sukh and
Definitely, and much more acute than what you are experiencing here. Imagine a person who is an alcoholic. Let us take an example. When he's in this world, he has a craving for alcohol, and he has a body, he can drink it. And at least for half an hour, he will be tripped. then of course the desire will come up again, and that's the hell he is living while he's alive. Now take this person after death. The alcoholic desire is still with him because subtle body has gone with him, and the desire is where? It's in the Sukshma Sharir. But without a body he can't drink. He's in fully hell. He cannot satisfy his desire. And you can imagine for an alcoholic, if he wants a drink and he cannot get his drink, how will he feel? So the pain and the suffering without the gross body is higher than with the gross body. So be very careful where you are still
Pain
attached.
is only the inability to fulfill vasanas.
You cannot do anything without body. Just imagine if you are fully paralyzed and your desires are raging, what will happen? Just think, because we cannot imagine not having a gross body. The only way I can explain that to you is to say that you are totally paralyzed and all desires, addictions are raging inside you. What are you going to feel? And I'm saying alcohol, it could be anything. It could be any desire. So, and everything, all these desires are only in the mind. And the mind has gone to you gone with you after death. So, yes, big problem.
Mother, is it important to fulfill those desires?
No! The minute you'll fulfill a desire, your mind is so chalak. The minute you'll fulfill the desire, one lovely logical thing will happen in your mind. Eating batata vada gives me sukh. And batata vada can be many things for different people. So, eating batata vada gives me sukh. Therefore, every time I feel dukh, let me have one batata vada. Batata vada can come in bottle, batata vada can come in
Digital.
whatever.
Other packages.
All packages. Okay? And what you are doing is you are only strengthening that illusion in your mind. Fulfilling a desire makes me happy. So you're actually, by fulfilling the desire, you are strengthening the desire. You are strengthening the vasana. So you are actually creating more and more trouble for you to get out of that.
How to control it? How to control it?
You cannot control it, ma. You cannot control it because it is very powerful. You can only understand it. And through understanding, and let me even go one step before understanding. First is make your goal. If you know my goal is to have moksha. If my goal is, forget moksha. My goal is to be happy. And everybody's goal is that. Finally, in the long run, your goal may be to make $1 million. But why you want to make $1 million? Because you want to be happy. Your goal may be to become thin. Why you want to become thin? Because that makes you happy. Your goal may be to earn 10 million crores of rupees, whatever. Why you want to earn so much money? Because it makes you happy. Your goal may be to have a Lamborghini. Where is that Lamborghini ka father? Your goal may be to have a villa. Your goal may be, why you want all these goals? Because you want to be happy. That's it. Bottom line is, I want to be happy. Let us forget about moksha. It's too far away to think about. If you want to be happy, then you don't want to be a slave to your desire. Because if you don't get that substance, whatever it may be, you are unhappy. Now you are one little puppet in the hand of whatever substance. That's it. You make the goal first, I want to be happy. Then you decide what will make me happy. So when that desire comes up, say, do I want batata vada or do I want to be happy? And when you understand that batata vada is giving me happiness for half an hour. And after that, 23 and a half hours of the day I am going to be unhappy. So which do I want? Half an hour happiness or 23 and a half hours of happiness or 24 hours of happiness? What do I want? The goal is not fixed. That is why we are stuck to desire. That is bottom line. If goal is fixed, you won't need to control anything. You won't need to deliberate. After a while, spontaneously, you will not take the thing that makes you a slave. Spontaneously, you will make the right choice. In the beginning, you will need to use vivek. That is your sense of discrimination between what is good for me and what is not good for me. You will need to use purusharth. You will need to work to think, no, I shouldn't have this because it's not giving me happiness, really. But after a while, when you'll do that kind of sadhana, spontaneously you say, kya karne ka hai? I don't need this to make me happy. And you will find other means of, more sattvic means of making yourself happy, and that is called sublimation. Sublimation of desires. You find something sattvic to replace temporarily your tamasic or rajasic desire. Find something sattvic. Go exercise, do yoga, go for a walk, listen to music, get a pet, do something. Huh? Huh.
So right now there's a lot of research on the science of willpower. So what does Vedanta say, or what word do they use, or is there a concept of willpower? And like I may set a goal, but I weaken and I give in to the desire. So
where science fails, Vedanta takes over. So for centuries, people have tried to use willpower. And we all know in this room how much willpower works. Why doesn't it work consistently? Because willpower, you have made this decision on 1st of January, let's say, 10 years ago even. 1st of January, 10 years ago. Your willpower exercise has been for 10 years. But your vasana has been there for how many lakhs of years? Which is more powerful? Therefore, it is bound to fail in the long run. Yes, it will work for you. You will need willpower. I'm not saying, but willpower plus understanding plus goal. This is the secret. God bless. So life is not from the moment of birth to the moment of death. Actually, there is a life before birth, but unmanifest. Then there is the time after you are born till the time you are dying or dead, manifest. Then the time after you have died, when you become again unmanifest. Okay? The wise person knows that he will live even after dying, and he has also lived before birth. And therefore, only this interim period, I am manifest. Now, there is one assumption, or there is one theory, or there is one way of looking at it in Vedanta, which says, whatever is the truth in the beginning, and that same truth is there at the end, in the middle also, it has to be the same. Whatever is in the beginning and in the end, that also has to be in the middle. Now I'm going little bit, it might be little bouncer, okay? Beginning, unmanifest. End,
unmanifest.
therefore in the middle, what are you?
Unmanifest.
That means you are Atma. Because what is manifest is body, and that's not what you are. Getting it?
Yes.
Simple.
In the previous sentence,
Oh God, don't you all tell me previous sentence and all, I don't know.
just one sentence.
Tell me what. Previous sentence, just one before it's finished now. I don't know what I said. Tell me.
Wise, you use the word wise.
Wise, huh?
So the wise man knows that he existed before
After that.
and before birth and will exist So wise in this case is realized.
Understand. At least theoretically, if you understand, you'll be quite wise.
So we are wise.
Yeah, you'll be quite wise.
We understand that.
You understand. Yet you give so much importance to the middle part. Why? If you understood it really, you would not be disturbed by anything happening in the middle.
So then he will, if the wise person is the realized person is the same.
Not
Wise
realize. I
intellect.
didn't say realize. I'm saying wise person. You have really understood it. You may not be unenlightened, but you've really understood it. You're not enlightened yet, maybe, but you've really understood this is just an interim period. It's one interval. So why do I get bothered with what people say? Why do I get bothered with somebody insulting me? Why do I get bothered with X, Y, and Z? If you are wise, you'll not be bothered. If you are wise, you will not be judging others. You'll be more focused on, now let me finish this interim period and get moksha and get out of this drama. Because it's a drama. So that is wise. See, it's like a railway journey. So you get into a train and there are other people in your compartment, fellow passengers. You have bought a ticket to go to where? Delhi, let's say. On the way, there are other people in the compartment, so you share your aloo paratha with them. They give you thepla. And then you talk and you exchange phone numbers also because you've suddenly developed this great affinity for them. But when their station comes, they get down. They get down. And you continue your journey. You're going to cry, oh, he got down in Kanpur. What will I do now? I have to go all the way to Delhi. You don't cry. You don't run after them. Arey, come back, get in the train. I'm still in the train. These are all your fellow passengers. All these. Now that fellow passenger, suppose he's wearing pink pants. Why? He's wearing now. He's not bothered. You're not bothered because Pagal has made a pink pant pehna. He'll get down in wherever. Maybe in Pink City, Jaipur. Why things bother you all? I don't understand.
Pink elephant.
Somebody's.
So yesterday we had a big discussion at my house about someone whose marriage ended in a sense, and then the views being that is it okay to get off at like another station if you as spouses are not compatible, or to say that how can you be spiritually actualizing if you are not able to live with even one person, then how can you say I'll embrace everything? So how do you apply this passenger journey example you just gave to very close relationships which
First and foremost, in Sanatana Dharma, once you get married, you are not two, you are one only. And Sanatana Dharma does not even imagine anything like divorce. It doesn't exist in Sanatana Dharma. There is no word for divorce. Okay, there is no word. It simply, there is no concept of divorce in Sanatana Dharma. You have got your partner for a reason. And we call that reason sandpaper. Because that sandpaper will keep rubbing you and you are the one getting polished, my dear. Finally, you will be shining. Let the sandpaper get eroded if need be. Maybe that person has, that soul decided that in this lifetime I will come and make somebody like Meenakshi enlightened. So that person will keep rubbing till you become enlightened. That's it. There is no concept of divorce in Sanatana Dharma. It doesn't exist. You are one. You are not two. Once you are married, you are one. I'm very sorry if I have crashed anyone's hopes. you are doomed to stay together.
That's why you're lucky if they get on in the Pink City.
Then let me tell you something which is going to be even worse. So you have started this journey from Bombay to Delhi. You are facing hell from Bombay to Jaipur. Jaipur, that person gets down. Okay? Then, wow, now at least from Jaipur to Delhi I will be in peace. But you have not finished that karma. So next life, that person will be with you from Bombay to Alaska. Now, might as well finish it off now from Bombay to Delhi. Up to Jaipur to this much at least you have born. अभी थोड़ा ही और है, कर दो, खत्म. And if that is also, then the return journey also will come. खत्म करो इधर ही. Warning. Be warned. That's all. Not warning. Be warned. खत्म करो. Whatever it is, खत्म करो. And you know, seriously, however terrible it may seem, and however you may wish that fellow gets off at Jaipur.
Or Philly, ma. Or Philly.
Acha Philly, chalo. However you wish, I'm telling you, the journey of being with that person and seeing the potential that you can become through the purusharth of being with that person, through the understanding of your journey, through the suffering, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, not that that person is going to change, not that that person will become a better person, because that person can become or not become, that's not in your hands. But what will change and what will become beautiful is you. And you're doing this staying together not to adjust to the other person, but to become the best you that is possible. You are the one getting enlightened. You are the one getting rubbed. You are the one getting polished. Sandpaper will get ghisawed and get lost also. But you will become radiant. You will become Brahma. This is your worst situation is your window out of suffering. And if you can just get that, keep going forward. Don't think of quitting ever. I'm telling that to you. It is quitting means inviting that same thing over again. First standard ka textbook. If you have failed, you have to come back and do that same textbook again. If you have failed, you have to do that textbook again. You cannot go to standard 2. Standard 1 ka textbook will keep coming to you. Why Liz Taylor got married 10 times or 7 times or 8 times? Yes or no? Why? They opt out so easy. Divorce kar do. Ha, very good. Next husband, same problem. 7 husbands later, same problem.
And same fellow 3 times.
It's true. She married the same guy again and again. What did she think? What was she thinking? And what are we thinking? Just this was something you have created. You have created a situation in your past which has brought you to this spouse. You have created it. And you have created it to become a better person. Now, instead of becoming a better person, you are drowning in that situation. Why are you drowning, yaar? There are so many, what are those things? Rings? Life buoys, whatever those things. Just hold on to one and float. Learn to swim. Don't drown. What are you doing? Don't waste this life. All the situations that you are facing in this life is of your own making. And they are all there to help you become a better person, to help you transcend it. Transcend it. Don't drown in it. Okay?